Hello and welcome to our radio. Today is 18 December 2020 and I'm your host Sakleen. Well, we have some important topics to talk about, so let's get started. First, we'll talk about a waste to energy plant constructed in a city called as Bidadi. Bidadi is a city located between the city of Bengaluru and Mysuru in Karnataka. And this waste to energy plant is important for the city because Bengaluru stands as one of the biggest generators of waste in the country. Now, this waste to energy plant is as powerful as 11.5 megawatts and can process 600 tons of waste every day, predominantly inorganic waste. Inorganic waste, as in which is not having any kind of moisture, it's not wet, or that kind of waste. Now, if you talk about Bengaluru city, it generates 5,000 tons of waste every day. The first is the organic waste, which is 2,500 tons. Inorganic waste, that is the 1500 tons, and 1000 tons is the you can say the waste which is a mix of both, right? So this is the kind of generation that Bengaluru does. Now this plant uses the inorganic waste like plastic and other dry wastes and converts it into refused derived fuel, or RDF. Now this RDF is used to generate steam energy, electric energy, and even burning the coal. Now, this waste to energy plant has a very important role to play because it also is helpful in segregating wet waste and other natural wastes. It converts the organic waste, that is the wet waste, into compost that can be used in planting, gardening, agriculture, and then it converts inorganic waste into energy. So, the 50 tons of waste is converted into, if converted into refuse derived fuel, it generates 1 megawatt of power. That's pretty powerful. 8 plants already exist in the around the corner of the cities, but then this one is new because it helps in using up the potential of the wastes. Now, inorganic wastes are a challenge because they are not biodegradable first of all, and can pose threat to environment and such other things that are around us. Now, if you talk about this plant, it generates 600 tons. It can convert 600 tons of waste per day. That means it will generate 11.5 megawatt of power, which is equal to 2.4 lakh units of power. So basically every day it will be generating 2.4 lakh units of power. It will reduce our dependency on fossil fuels and it will make the environment cleaner. Now several plants are, as this is needed in the today's setup, but then it suffers from some operational problems. Let's say the plants are not manufactured in our country, we know that. So let's say there is a kind of waste that we put in, and this waste has to have certain kind of, it should adhere to certain kind of norms, where let's say the moisture content should be less than 5%, the silt and soil content should be less than 5%, and this is how the waste should be. But in India it's difficult because you never know how and what waste is there, and in India, segregation at source does not happen, and this challenges the machines and the environment. And you can also talk about how purchasing tariff is higher in these plants in comparison to other places where we get tariff. So the purchasing tariff is a little higher and the expenditure is a little higher. As a result, it becomes expensive. So we should take all these things into consideration, and we should go forward in this regard to make sure that we have something like the waste to energy plants in the proper way. Apart from this, the next topic we're talking about is the problems that online education poses to the people. First, we'll talk about from the teacher's perspective. Teachers suffer from the problem of lack of appropriate devices. Let's say you need the graphic tablets, you need webcams. It's difficult because not all teachers have them. Second is to have bandwidth as in internet. Not all teachers have them. Third is investment. They need to pull in some money. They need to loosen their pockets a bit to get these products for their disposal, like the webcam and other things. So that's another challenge that the teachers face. And lastly, it's about the material. What kind of material the students need. So all in all, it's a tough situation to manage. And if you talk about online education from a holistic perspective, we can say that 90% of children don't have it, or are not a part of it, don't have access to it because of obvious reasons. No access to devices, bandwidth, etc. Now, right to education talks about children having compulsory education, but does right to education include right to devices also? We have not thought of that. So, online education is not giving children the right kind of access to education. That is why we should include a right to devices also. The efforts need to be doubled in this regard. Now, talking about students, some students have mobile phones, some students have laptops. Not all of them are mobile, not all of them are comfortable mobile phones, not all of them are comfortable in laptops. And of course, some people don't even have access to any of this. So parents have to pay money to get access to this, and it gives us a repair. We have to pay money to get it repaired also. This causes mental stress, and this eventually leads to poor children or vulnerable section children drifting off from what you call as education, which they are not willing to afford because it's becoming more expensive. Because apart from you can say basic fees that they have to pay for these technical devices. The students are unable to provide a feedback to the teachers, in the sense they are not able to reciprocate in the right manner. So again, another challenge. And the home environment is not conducive for them for learning as a school environment is. So this is another bigger challenge, because they'll be going through a lot of things at home. They'll be not in a situation to like grasp what is being taught, and so on and so forth. Then you can talk about lack of stimulation from the teachers. At this aspect, there is no proper stimulation from the teachers, and as a part of this, we need hybrid solutions. We need solutions that will cater to both of this. And also, you can talk about how we can make this a part of the national curriculum framework, right? So all these things come into picture. Now let's talk about girls and women with regards to online education. Of course, it will provide space for a lot of women and girls to get educated in the right way from homes itself. It's a good positive thing, but it has a flip side, because the girls will be vulnerable to the cyberspace, or any children for that matter will be vulnerable to cyberspace, and the threat of girl falling victim to this is more in how we are going today. There's something called a son meta preference that comes into picture, where if the parents or if the family is given a choice to give their smartphone to the girl or the boy, they'll automatically give it to the boy, because they want the boy to get educated more than the girl, because that's the kind of patriarchal setup we have in today's Indian society. So son meta preference is another problem. And how the women had to stay back in their homes. Anyone had to stay back because of the lockdown. Women had to stay back in their homes and hostels, and this made them more vulnerable to home abuse and violence and other things. So this is also another flip side. And due to all these problems, and parents not really interested in getting online education, push their girl child into marriage. Online education is not suitable for them, so they say, why not you get married, and they push them to early marriages, early childhood marriages, and these kind of things. So this is a bigger challenge that we have at time, that we need to address, that we have not spoken about, not even thought about it. And then we ask a question: how do we make online education interesting? The point is that the author says we should make it more effective first, and 2 3 layers down the lane it will automatically become interesting. First is the multi-channel communication is important, through voice, through audio, through video, through WhatsApp. To It should be a multimodal communication, that they should have a track of the child. And then learning material should be disposed in various modes, be it through your voice notes, through your online video lectures or handouts. It should be there from various, and it should be crisp, and the classes should be crisp for 30 to 40 minutes. The teacher should not be a facilitator, but should be a transferer of knowledge. Teacher should be flexible in the way he or she talks. Teacher should be emphatic. There should be voice modulation, proper communication. All these things should come into picture to make it more effective for the children to see, yeah, I'll enjoy online classes. You can use videos, you can share screens, so much interactive things you can do on online place. And then you can lastly talk about assessment. Assessment becomes very important, and portfolio assessment is more important, because we need to assess the child on what he has learned and not what he has rote learned. We should assess the child on what he has understood and not what he has by heart. So that becomes important. And an online space is pretty tough. Formative assessment at one point could be done, but summative assessment is difficult, because how do you see their lab activity? How do you see their online performance? How do you see their offline performance? So that's becoming very difficult. So taking all these things into perspective, we need to go forward with the proper shaping of online education. This is the new normal in the country. We need to shape it. We need to move forward in the right way and take proper decisions in this regard. Lastly, we'll talk about India's relationship with United Kingdom, former colonizer. So now United Kingdom is almost ending the transition period of Brexit and coming up to what you call as a profound position as a singular entity. And since it's cutting off with the European Union, UK is trying to strengthen its position with the other nations outside the European Union. So now Mr. Boris Johnson, who happens to be the the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, has agreed to become the chief guest of the Republic Day celebrations. And then Prime Minister Modi will be definitely visiting G7 summit, which will happen there, and also the COP26 Conference of Parties, which will be held in Glasgow, right? So all these things are coming into picture that we have to understand, and this will be the first bilateral visit of Prime Minister Johnson after Brexit, and this will put forth the idea of 10-year roadmap of relations between us. Now UK is talking about upgrading our strategic partnership, which we signed in the year 2004, to a comprehensive strategic partnership, which will talk about closer military cooperation, cooperation in the Indo-Pacific region. It will talk about counter-terrorism. It will talk about climate change, so on and so forth. UK is trying to make free trade agreements with USA, like I told you, and also several other nations like us, India, Japan, Vietnam, and so many other places where they have to build stronger cooperation. Now, vaccine cooperation is a new way where several countries are, producing vaccines, and they are cooperating in this regard. And lastly, we can talk about visas, collaboration on visas, after how it will look when UK will be completing Brexit. And then you can talk about the fugitives that are hidden, for example Mr. Vijay Mallya. How do we get him back? What is the procedure that we follow in this new regime? And then you can talk about how UK has criticized some internal policies of India, like the abrogation of Article 370, the Citizenship Amendment Act, the farmers' protest as well. And UK says that your diaspora, that is the Indian diaspora, is so much in our nation that we tend to be worried about what you guys are doing. But then this relationship should be taken forward in a manner where we are not very sensitive to what UK is saying, and UK is not very sensitive to what India is doing. So we should be more cooperative in bilateral ties, not in domestic ways. So yeah, that's it from today's R Radio, guys. Thank you so much for staying tuned. If you have any doubts or discrepancies, write those in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Until next time, stay safe, take care, bye bye.